So, funny story, we should have been hitting record like 15 minutes ago because Melissa Halpin and I have been talking shop behind the scenes, and all of it was gold. All of it was amazing. She's giving me wonderful advice about being a homeowner, about being a good community member, a good friend. So, we were like, we have 30 seconds and then we have to hit record because this needs to be on camera. Welcome back to the Let's Glow Show. It's Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother, and I help people get fly, make friends, and save the world through community. And on the Let's Glow Show, we interview creative entrepreneurs at all stages of their career, whether they're just starting out with an idea or they're seasoned professionals with their name about town. And this woman right here has her name about town. This is Melissa Halpin, the founder of the Kindling project and the principal and CEO of Memora Design. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, my friend. What a good way to start the day.
Oh, I know. I was like, we're just gabbing, and I'm
I
like,
know.
oh, coming out. Like, we need the people to hear this. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay, stop the conversation because we were
I
talking
know.
the joys of home ownership and all the new challenges. And then we were talking about like how you want to like get your return on your money so you stay in the house.
Yeah.
And then pushing yourself to get outside to be around friends and people. And I was like, this is a perfect segue because that's kind of what the Kindling project is about. Tell us a little bit about both, but let's start with Kindling.
Okay, so the Kindling project is we have sort of a mission statement where we're creating spaces for that tiny fire inside of you. So whatever that may be, back in about 2000 or 2020 pandemic times, a dear friend of mine, Amy, and I were trying to escape the house, and I think everybody was looking at their life at that time, like really just doing some reflection about what is important, what's really important. And the thing that came up for me over and over again is, in my life, in my own personal life, art making is the most important thing to me. And I do all of these things that are adjacent to art making, right? I'm a creative director. I had a career in museums. I like decorating my home, which we were just talking about. I like clothing. I'm always that friend who's, helping you pick out your paint colors and, helping you buy furniture or helping you with your website or your logo or your brand. But art making for the sake of art making that comes from inside, that's internally driven, that's a creative force. That's really always from my earliest memories, what's been most important to me. And over time, it doesn't get prioritized, right? I'm not putting kindling on my own fire, or I'm doing the things that society says are acceptably adjacent. Like I'm working as a creative director, I'm working as an exhibit designer, I'm working as a graphic designer, because we live in this society where, even the most spiritual and soulful activities have to be monetized to be valuable. And so I thought that this was just a weirdo creative thing. I thought, well, this is just the story of artists. But the more women I talked to about how I was struggling with this, including my friend Amy, who's a social worker and a therapist, and what's important to her is different than what's important to me. But still, somehow, as women, we don't necessarily really feed that fire. And so that's what the Kindling Project was founded on. That's the idea of it.
Oh, it's so beautiful and important. I recently got to participate in a content shoot with you and had some beautiful women there. One of our mutual friends, Brenda, was there. And anytime Brenda is around, you always feel this like spiritual connection, which she was on the show. Dell was shooting the content. She's been on the show before. Amazing women. And it just is a good reminder, like, that we can do things that feel good without permission.
Yes.
And we were talking a little bit about this briefly right before, but like on Friday, I didn't mention this, but on Friday of this week, we've been in the house. We're like, oh, we got to do all these house things. We got to focus on our responsibilities. And Hadestown was in town for just the weekend. It's a musical and it was playing at the Fisher, which was right down the street from where I live now. And I was like, I want to go. And nobody was like, I'll go with you. And I was like, okay, well, maybe if I have to go by myself, then I shouldn't really go. And I had this like tug of war with myself for like an hour and a half. I'm doing my makeup. I'm sitting in my room. I'm like, oh, should I not go? Should I go? Should I not go? Is it going to be weird? And I fought myself the whole drive. I fought myself buying the ticket, and I'm walking in and I sit in the seat, and then the lights go down, the curtains come up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love this. I love this. Is like, you know, part of me, like in what you're saying is like, I watch theater, but I really want to be doing theater.
Right.
So I love that the Kindling project exists, because I think there's something about like, oh, maybe I shouldn't because some extra reason.
Right. It's so counterintuitive that we don't do those things. You know, our metaphor is, you know, putting kindling or fuel on your own fire, but there's, you know, it could be a million metaphors. But why don't we feed our souls? Why aren't we nurturing ourselves and doing the things that give us joy and that inspire us? And, you know, there's a bunch of reasons and barriers, and some of those are real tough conversations, and some of those are just real simple, like, we need to give ourselves permission. We need to give ourselves time. And we need to sort out the right community. And so that's the other reason why a community really makes sense. I think one of the things you and I super duper have in common is community building. And you mentioned our recent like roundtable conversation, and we recorded it and we took photos of it, and we're going to share those. But it's actually the conversation part. It's the connection part between women of different nationalities and different ages and different places in life, like coming together and building a community that's about truth, you know, about honesty, about safety. I mean, obviously, I don't know. We're living in this time where safety has become more of a concern, you know, psychically and physically, of course, and financially, and all the reasons. But that sort of spiritual safety and sisterhood is super important to me.
We need it. Otherwise, we'll get stuck in a hole.
Yeah.
That's very like, you know, algorithmic. You know, so like the second we get out of it and start practicing our craft and practicing your craft around people, you know, I've been fighting with myself of taking the sewing class that starts this weekend, and maybe after talking to you, I might just be like, okay, fine, let's do it. You know,
are you gonna sew clothes?
Yeah, so CCS has like adult education courses, and I've taken 3 sewing classes there with the amazing Robin. She's the founder of Ivy's Custom Corsetry, where I get a lot of my custom corsets. And taking that class was so good for me, because I'm like, it was a lot like that, like all demographics, mostly women, you know, all different ages, all different storylines happening at once. Like one woman was starting a business because she divorced her husband after 25 years, and you know, she was at a very different place in her life, and there was a girl fresh out of college, there was somebody, you know, there's people like all over, and I'm like, wow, like I can learn from all of you. Get to, because I chose to go outside and kindle my own fire.
There you go.
I love that. And you have another
well, I was gonna say, I took my first couple sewing classes. We were just talking before we recorded that you just bought a house.
Yeah.
And I took my first couple sewing classes forever and ever ago, 25 years ago at Haberman Fabrics in Royal Oak.
Yeah.
And I took a bunch of home deck sewing classes because we had just bought our first house. And I still think about like making the curtains and making the window seat cushion and making the throw pillows, and, you know, just wanting them to not feel commercial, wanting them to be, you know, ours, and pick them out. And like, that was it, you know, I don't think I've really touched the sewing machine or the serger since making, you know, my kids' beddings, and they're like 16 and 20 now. So forever ago, but I just like the synchronicity that you're taking your sewing class right after you bought your first house. And
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I want to make my own throw pillows. Like, I want it to look like the art that my husband makes. Like, he makes the most amazing art. I'm like, we're gonna put it up on the wall. You think I'm gonna go into like whatever department store and find the pillow? Just happen to find the pillow that matches this creative explosion that's on the wall. Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to find this in the store. I have to make it. This is where my head's at, you know?
I love that. Oh, it's nesting.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I
I
love it. Speaking of nesting, you also have an interior design studio.
Okay, so well, we do interiors, but we started out. My original, what I did after college for a decade was work in museums, and so a lot of exhibit design. And then I had some kids, and I wanted to stay home with them as much as possible, but I still needed to work, and I still needed a creative outlet. And so I started an experience design agency, really with the intent of sort of um, looking across a wide range of experiences or touch points, as we say, and whether it's the interior of your business, or it's the logo, or it's the website, or it's an event, or it's an exhibit. We want to look at all your experiences and create um, branding or messaging or communication that is consistent and meaningful and true to you across experiences. And so I have had an experience design agency for 12 years. It started in San Francisco. I moved here to Detroit in 2015. And for 4 years, we had a brick and mortar studio in Corktown, right across from train station. But COVID came, life came, virtual work became a thing, and now my entire team is dispersed around the US, and we all work virtually.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm sorry for getting it wrong.
No. We have done a number of interiors, and I, coming from an experience and exhibit background in museums, I really like spaces. I think of spaces as like, metaphorically and in real life, right? So people often associate me with spaces.
Yeah, but it could be like web spaces or digital.
It could be web spaces and digital spaces. And in fact, the majority of our work these days is digital.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love that though, because you took this kind of journey. I'm curious, like, when you were in school and working in the museum, did you see yourself as an entrepreneur? Is that something that you saw for yourself? Okay.
From my earliest memories, I loved museums. I always wanted to work in museums and public spaces. And, I love art museums. I love interactive experiences, children's museums. I've worked in science centers. I was part of the team. When I moved back here, I was part of the team that did the big Detroit Science Center expansion. Nice. So I have been thinking all my life that I was going to work in nonprofit, greater good, arts and culture. And we still do a lot of that work. I would say half of our clients are nonprofits and foundations and funds and greater good work. But I had that crossroads in life where I was, trying to raise little babies. And I needed the flexibility of like, how can I still work but still be here? And so, it was a good time for that because the internet was still fairly new and virtual work wasn't much of a thing. I mean, when I used to tell people I had a virtual design agency or I was going to send them a GoToMeeting link before Zoom, it was like, what? We found that, well, the whole world has adapted now. People were craving it. And the model for Memora, we always say Memora is a shortening of memorable, and we create memorable experiences. And the model for that thinking has really caught on. And oftentimes with clients, the entry point might be a logo or it might be a website. But many of our clients we've been with for 10 years, And we've now we've now done events, we've now done interiors, exteriors, signage, all their touch points.
Oh, it's beautiful. I am curious. I know a lot of young people, not even just young people, but people dabbling their hand not only in digital design, but like the entrepreneurship space. I'm thinking about a couple people in particular. I'm asking this question for them. So, if you are starting out and you are getting asked to do logos or to do like small little one-off branding opportunities, how do you scale from being that one-off person that the client calls to be working with someone for 10 years? Like what's your best tidbit there? Because I feel like some of my solopreneurial friends are kind of stuck in this like
Yeah.
pond.
Yes. And that I know exactly where they're at. And I've had, I would say, like batches of clients that came certain ways that are in that category of one-offs, or for a period of years, we were a Motor City match vendor. And so for that, I think that was 4 years, 5 years that we did that work. A lot of times the client is a solopreneur, or all the time. It's a startup. It's they're bootstrapping. They don't have enough money. They're buying their first logo, or they're buying their first website. Or we did several interior designs for retail spaces in Detroit out of that program. But I do think, and you have to qualify your clients, and you have to figure out the work that you like the best. That particular client is still experimenting. They're going to have a hard time making a commitment to you. One, because they haven't really figured out what they want, who they want to partner with. And so there is this mentality of, oh, I want to try this agency or that agency or this freelancer. Or oftentimes I get the sense of they're having a very hard time letting go of any control. So they want to be their own creative director, and they want to freelance it out. And for us, one of the ways that we've built long-standing relationships is convincing or educating the client about, if you let us be the creative director and guide you across all those touch points, you're going to have consistency, and you're going to have meaning, and it's going to resonate with your audience. So, and that comes from my museum background of like really thinking about who's the visitor, who's the audience, what is memorable to them. And then people see the value of that when their marketing collateral doesn't all look like spaghetti, because you had some of it done at FedEx, you had some of it done by my brother-in-law, and you did some of it yourself, and you got a free Canva and template. And then when people interact with your brand, they can't sort through it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So and wrong with doing a bunch of that one-off work. You learn a lot by doing it. And sometimes those people come back when they're more mature.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm glad to hear that they're not alone. And I'm also glad to hear that like across industries, we're not alone. Like I feel like as someone, I'm trying to find my own way through the revamp, but also like as someone who's a speaker. And I feel there's still so many parts of my brain, especially on the speaker side, where I'm like, I'm doing all these one-off things. I haven't figured out what my like thing is that's going to keep people back or whatever. I feel like I'm swimming in this like super small pond going like this.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of noise or advice around you have to niche down, or you have to define yourself. And there's definitely some wisdom in there. There's some market wisdom in there. But I think you are a good example, really, of like the ideal client, because it's not so much in my mind about niching down in a commercial category. It's really about niching inside of yourself. What's true and authentic for you? And if that guides your decisions, then whether you're at a speaking engagement, whether you're putting on an event, whether you're on a podcast, whether you're designing a pillow for your new home,
Yeah.
whether you're curating art,
Yeah.
your authenticity will have a flavor. It will have a message. It will have that will be its own niche, Amanda. And so I wouldn't say that if you're prescribing to some of that advice about I need to define myself, that it necessarily needs to be in a category. It just needs to be what you authentically care about, and the rest like sorts itself out.
I appreciate that advice because everybody's like, not everybody, and it happens a lot less now, but I will say when I was in my like 20s, I'm still experimenting, but I think my experiments are becoming more and more refined. But I'm
Yes.
still experimenting with like who I am, what do I stand for, what is my mission, what do I like to do, what do I not like to do? Like I DJ'd for the second time, but that was like in the last 3 months. Like, is that who I am now? Is this who
Yes.
And in my 20s, everybody's like, you need to pick a lane. You need to pick a thing. You need niche down. Like nobody understands who you are, what you do. Like we just don't get it.
I get that all the time. I'm in my 50s. So, I'm quite a bit older than you, and I still get that of like, what do you guys do? Is it a web design agency? Are you do your branding and marketing? Are you a social media agency? And I just have just clung true to we create experiences. And if we're in that space, in that intersection between you and your audience, you and your brand, you and your community, if that's the space that we're handling, the deliverable I'm agnostic about. Because I could be excited about building you a website. I could be excited about throwing you an event.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I can guide you through the lens of who's experiencing this and why. And then the deliverable is really, let's not even define it up front. And I have that creative director who's talked people out of building a new website and into doing something else. Because you might have the budget and you might have said, oh, we're going to save up and we're going to do a big new website. But what does your audience need right now? Who are you communicating to? Is that where they are?
Right. Are they even looking at the website?
Right, exactly.
They're going straight to your Instagram, or they're going to your like TikTok page or something.
Yes. Is it a video series or is it an event you should be putting on? So I do think I think that advice that creatives get is about defining themselves is there's some wisdom there, but yeah, take all things in measure, right? Does it apply to me? I mean, I don't see you. I see you as, a wild and free fairy spirit, right? So you're not, you're going to be DJing and podcasting and designing clothing, and maybe you'll have a line of, I don't know, coffee, whatever.
Who knows? It might.
Who knows what it is.
I do love coffee. But I do like you said something that was pretty interesting. You're like, it was like the umbrella, like what's the through line? And for creatives, like maybe when we hear that advice or when we get that feedback about our work, maybe it's that we don't have the niche through line. But I think to what you're saying, like your niche through line is always going to be you.
Right.
That is the thing that holds it all together. And I remember when I came up with I help people get fly, make friends, and save the world through community. I was at
say it again slowly.
I help people get fly, make
friends,
save the world through community. I remember when I thought of that because for years I was like, what do? We do this, we do that, we do a little bit of all this stuff, I was like, what is it actually that we do that if any iteration of it exists,
right,
it does this thing? And I had flown down to Louisiana. I think we flew into Texas, but we flew to visit LaBrie's family. It was for like an engagement party. It was going to be a whole bunch of people that I had never met before. And I knew I was going to get this question. Like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And we were in the hotel. He's ironing his shirt. And I'm like, what do we do, Labrie? What do we do? And he was like, I don't know. I was like, well, he's like, what do we do? And I was like, well, we help people get fly. And I was like, I love making people make friends, you know, and we were kind of like chewing on it. And it came out like get fly, make friends, and save the world. And, you
Nice.
know, and we worked on that for a long time. But I was like, whether I'm DJing, throwing a party, doing a revamp, doing the podcast, doing coaching, doing speaking, whatever it is, I'm always kind of trying to do that thing, you know? And I realized that that's the niche.
Right.
Anything
Right.
can be under the niche.
Right.
Literally
If
anything.
that's always the lens, like, am I doing it? I think that's perfect. And I a lot of times, this is one of the things that we work with our clients on is once you can define that goal, that message, that mission statement, that core value, if everything goes through that lens, it'll sort itself out.
Yeah.
It'll sort itself out. And then you won't be limited either.
Because you can just have the idea and put it through the filter. You know, when we did the Halloween party, we got asked to do the curation for Ideation Orange for the month of October, which was beautiful. But we were like, we've never curated an art gallery before. But like, how can we do that in a way that like we felt
Oh,
Labrie and I particularly feel like art shows are boring because they're trying to be like other art shows, and all those art shows are trying to be like other art shows. And so we're like, how do we do this in a way that feels authentic and feels like fun? And we're like, oh, we just throw a bunch of parties in the month of October, and there's just so happen to be art there that you can buy and participate in, you know? And so we put it through the lens. And it
mhm.
made sense. People weren't like, you're throwing this Halloween. Why are you throwing a party with a weird theme? Like, because
Right.
tell people to get fly
Right.
for one, you know? So all of that to say, like,
I
I
love
like
it.
the idea of like leading with authentic
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. That your values. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
I
love
think, this is another like very standard, it's in all the marketing and design and business books about having a mission statement. And there's a million ways to say that. But I do think if you can succinctly say in a sentence, I remember one of my very early jobs was at a science center, the Tech Museum in San Jose, California.
Mm.
And they had a consultant come in to try to define the mission of the museum. And one of the things that that particular consultant was kind of known for at that time was that if you can't put it in a sentence on the back of the business card, you can't achieve it. You can't do it.
Mhm.
And I think that's actually stuck with me all these years is really super good advice.
Yeah.
And you could type that, print that, put that on the back of a business card, tattoo it on your arm, right? It's very, very simple and succinct. And then it makes it uh, actually, I think I sometimes see these mission statements that are like a giant paragraph because
Yes.
they have to throw everything in. And it's like, actually, the more simple and more succinct it is, the wider of opportunity it opens. Once you start putting all this definition and language on it, yeah,
Mhm.
it's boring. Who reads it?
Yeah, but I got another really good piece of advice recently, from an individual who is a successful business owner, and I was dealing with some challenges with other people, kind of, not I wouldn't say, trying to think of the right words to put it. I was getting some negative feedback and pressure to be something, even though we already live a mission. And they were
Right.
like, people who have to perform a mission are not living the mission every day. And those like long paragraphs of missions have to explain what the mission is versus you living the mission and doing the
Yes.
mission every day and it being clear what it is to
Yep.
everybody who sees it. And so it just reminded me like, okay, we're on a mission. This is what we do. And it can fall in any of these categories, but we don't have to prove it to anybody because we do
No.
it
No.
every day.
Yeah.
Like, this is how we live and this is how it shows up. And we just added words to it so that you could understand why
Right.
we do
Right.
all this stuff. You
Right.
know?
That's the best. That's the best when it just flows out of you naturally.
Yeah. I am curious, like as a creative person, you mentioned earlier how, Kindling came from a passion for focusing on the art for art's sake.
Yeah.
And as a creative business owner, you're now on the business side.
Mhm.
And you have the Kindling project. So you're organizing and you're bringing people together. So you're now doing like,
Right.
founder things, which is also not doing the art.
Right.
How do you balance like this creative idea? I got to get these things out and like art for art's sake.
That's the irony. So I have, I've actually spent almost a year now with like a business coach, soul coach, spiritual guide. I don't know if you know Jackie Smith,
I don't.
Coventry. Um, and that is the irony and the rub for me is when I was asking myself, what do I need to do more of art making? And I was talking to the women in my circles. We all agree that it's carving out the space, whether it's physical space, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's all the things, creating the spaces for yourself to be able to go and make the art or to go and run for office or, to become a great chef or to build that garden. Because many of the women who have been drawn to the Kindling Project have, wide and varied sort of passion projects or, internal fires for something they want to do, whether it's work with children or save the world, make music. But why don't we do it? Well, we don't create enough space for it in our lives. So it's always there. It's always there internally, but it's like you said, it's like the obligations, it's the relationships, it's the money making, it's the house taking, caring, the child care, all the things.
Yeah.
And so I had this really strong calling of I'm going to help create those spaces. I'm going to build more stages. I'm going to build more community for other women to come and put some kindling on their fire. And then the irony of that is, like you said, I've now added a whole second business, entrepreneurial effort, creative endeavor, call it what you will, on top of running a design agency, on top of running a family, on top of being a mom, on top of being worried about the world and trying to be a citizen. And so I would say that that's the big irony is I'm making spaces for other women. And then again, how am I still getting back to making spaces for me? But I do find that prioritizing the space making for other women is a reminder that I have to do it for myself and that I do get inspiration and fuel and creative ideas from community. And so that aspect of it is good for my art making because I talk to women like you, I talk to women like Linda, I talk to women like Brenda, and I'm inspired by their undertakings. And then I come home and I'm like, that's it. You're going to paint this weekend.
Yes.
So
I think it's funny, ironic, and I feel very connected to that because like I have another idea and I'm like, oh, we got to get the whole world involved and I got to be the director of this and I got to figure out the way to like turn this into a business. And one thing I'm trying to learn right now is like, where's the art in it? Because for a long time, Labrie, who's my husband, I don't know if you've met my husband yet.
I haven't, but I really want to. I follow you guys online. I love you. I know I'll love him.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's an amazing teacher by leading by example. And there's a couple things that I noticed. Like one, he has always said, he's like, your art is peopling and dressing, and I'm like, that's not art,
Oh,
and
it is, my friend. It is.
But I had to I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist. I like creativity and I have creative ideas, but I'm not an artist. And he's like, no, your art is peopling. Like you are really good at it. And now when I look at when I think about the swaps or the emails that I get to send, like I like to craft them and make them colorful and make the font fun so that like, is this fun for someone to read? Are they going to read the whole thing? Are they going to get all the information? Are they going to be able to consume it and then share it and then talk about it? Like, and I had to learn that some of those like administrative things could be part of the art and part of the experience. And like, and then definitely dressing is now becoming, I think I talked about this on an episode with Taylor from the Monarch Coaching, like way back when, that like when Labrie was like, oh, you're doing your art right now. And that's why I never rush you when you're getting ready to go somewhere, because you're participating in your art space, which is like wearing the pieces.
Yeah.
And I've never been in a situation like that where a partner or a family member that I live with did not rush me. And I feel like it shows in the outfits. Like
it does. Well, I mean, you recently a couple times have had an opportunity to meet my childhood best friend, Mary Alice.
Yes. Oh, she's amazing.
And so we've known each other since we were 12 years old and gone through middle school, high school, college, weddings, the whole thing, life together. Yeah. And you and she have that in common. From my earliest memories of like sleepovers and her pink bedroom, she was making and arranging things with her closet and her clothes and her jewelry and her accessories. And she tends to, forgive me if she listens, always run late, right? Because that getting dressed is like her true expression. It would be like if I had to make a painting every time I left the house.
Yeah. Is we don't make enough space for it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I just got to get ready to go to do this thing. Yeah. But what we need to think about, and which is why I'm actively working on getting better about my tardiness, because I feel like that I don't make enough space for the creative part to happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, I have to get ready. And it takes this person 30 minutes to get ready and that person an hour to get ready. But like, I need to say like, this is my creative process and it takes longer, and that's not a bad thing. I just need to be prepared for it and make space for it, which is that I feel like maybe Mary Ellis is getting into, where she maybe doesn't realize that like, oh, she's going through a creative process, which has experiments, trial, error, every day, like.
I'm going to tell her, I'm going to talk to her about this way of thinking. That was such a gift that your husband gave you. Oh, I don't think anybody's really said that to her, although, her entire life, people admire her clothes, her look, her fit. Like, she just has a knack for, you could give she and I the same 20 pieces, and what she would come out of it and what I would come out of it with is totally so different, because it's like really an extension or an expression for her. And I like clothes and I like color and design and texture, but it's not my primary medium.
Sure. And the people who do have it as a primary medium are often put into this like box of being vain or a box of being materialistic, and a lot of times it's women. Like if you see men who are stylish, there's a different like connotation versus if you see a woman like, oh, they're money hungry, they only care about materials or whatever. There's a lot of like words that are put on women who like to dress well or dress differently than societal norms, and it's not easy to walk outside looking different and knowing that you look different, but you're like, this is who I am.
Right. And it's so unfair. It's so unfair because hobbies and creative and things that we do for entertainment, they're all expensive. I mean, golf is expensive, right? It's like, so the fact that clothing and fashion can be expensive, in which, you've got this amazing, platform revamp. Clothing doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be disposable. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to explore it, but it can be expensive, and who cares? Like, it's just money. I mean, we're here, we're here for reasons that really aren't about commerce. And if the way you decide to spend your money is, buying a boat or, buying a huge wardrobe, well, why so much judgment? I don't get that at all.
I don't get it, but I think it does come from a place of fear.
Yep.
When it's like expressive,
jealousy,
or design. You know, you could walk into a place and the person that lives there has exploded their entire spirit in the house, and you're like, I don't get it. Like,
Exactly. Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
it's like for you to get, and it's
Yeah.
not for you to understand. It's like, this is my home, or this is my home, you know, and I dress my physical home like this to feel like this, you know. And it's interesting dynamic, but I think as women, especially like women who like to dress, who like to style themselves to express themselves, don't give themselves enough credit because they're probably getting a lot of lashback. Like, do you think life is a fashion show? I heard that all the time. It's not a fashion show. We're not going. We're going to, you know, we're going to temple. We're going to church. We're going to a wedding. It's not a fashion show. And I'm like, but it is.
Yeah.
But it is. You know.
But
So
you know, like, not to get too woo woo on you, but
it was. I like
it
woo woo.
really isn't even about the end result. It's about the
No.
doing, right?
Mhm.
I mean, art making, dressing, design, all of these things, like on a sort of energetic and spiritual level, are about the doing of them, the sort of channeling creative and the expressing. And so the end result is amazing, right? We all love to see someone who looks fly. We
Yeah.
all, you know, can you know, whether it's like the yummiest, best smelling, tasting, textured pie in the world. Like, we all want to eat that pie, but really the art of the pie was the baking, the cutting, the chopping, the planning, the making,
The
right?
grocery
That's
shop.
why the end result that we appreciate it so much is that there's something, some creative energy, something godly about the doing.
Oh, I love it. And the completion, like the sense of relief when you figure it out, or when you
Right.
get the like,
Yeah.
this is it. This is the right, or like when you taste it, like you
Right.
know, leaning into like cooking and like feeling with my
Right.
senses, and like when you know you made the thing like
Right.
perfect. It was
Right.
funny because I do a lot of meal prepping, and I usually am like, hubby, come here, taste this. And it was funny because I was like, you know, I know when he doesn't like it, even if he'll never ever tell me he doesn't like it. He'll be like,
Aw.
it's good. And I'm like, not ready.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right. Right.
And he's
Right.
like, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm like, not ready. And
Right.
then like I know when it's like ready, when he's like, no words, just
Right.
face,
Right.
sound, you know, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that is art because I'm like, I put my love into it and I crafted it in a way that the
Yeah.
experience is going to be pleasurable and enjoyable, but the art of it like is also fun. And I
Yeah.
think
That's
one
fun.
thing I learned from him that I want to share with you about making space and time is every day Labrie will come home and just like play on the piano for 30 seconds.
Ah.
Sometimes he doesn't sit there for long. Sometimes he'll just play one song, boop, boop, and then
Yeah.
he'll get up and go. Or he'll put like when he's in his painting groove, it'll
Yeah.
be out and he'll just do like, he's like, I just got to touch it once today. He'll just
Yeah.
put one little thing and then walk away. He'll look at it and then he'll walk away.
My
And I,
husband is the same way. We're both married to musicians, and he has
yeah,
that sort of like, he'll come home from a long day of work, and he's like me. He's doing creative work in an executive space, right? He's,
yeah.
building interfaces and handling a UX group for a big company.
Mhm.
So he is expending creative energy on his day job, and he loves mentoring people and whatever. But he will come home from that long drive and go in the basement to his little music studio and like crank up that amp and rock out on that guitar. And
Yeah.
he just needs that outlet. The kids will come in, they'll be like, "Oh, dad's in the basement, rock it out." It's like, I totally get that. And I do think it's a good reminder for us is to just go play the piano. You
Just
don't
touch
have
it.
to have a finished composition. Just go do it. It's the doing.
And I feel like this morning I had a thought where, because I'm unpacking right now, I have like boxes and reminders all in every corner of all the stuff I got to do.
Yeah.
And I had a thought. I was like, okay, this weekend I'm going to finish this. And I
Yeah.
have to wait till this weekend because it's the only time I have enough time to finish this product or project.
Right.
But product too. Like I find myself in this like mentality of extremes. If I can't finish it, or I
Right.
don't have this much time, I can't do it. But that's not true. Like I could just pull one thing out of the box and put it up. Or I could just like write one email and send it out. I don't have to send all the emails, or I don't have to finish the puzzle or finish the garment. I can just like open the sewing machine and put it on the table. And
Right.
then
Right.
you know?
Like
So
baby steps.
yeah. And now, you know, the baby steps are still steps, but
Right.
I noticed it this morning. I'm like, oh, it's either all or nothing for me. And I
Right.
don't live in that space. Like I don't have to.
Right.
But
When you carve up your pie of your day or your life, like if a percentage of it is creative and a percentage of it is executive and a percentage of it is relationships or whatever, if you think about it in that way of like creating space, you're still creating space for your creativity by setting up the sewing machine. Or I mean, I can only imagine that you're like this. Even just like looking at your fabric, sorting the colors. Look, I'm like a consummate organizer, rearranger, arranger. And sometimes people will say to me, and my mother-in-law has said this to me a couple of times, like, nobody cares. Like, it looks good from 20 miles an hour. Like, who's looking at that? Because she thinks all the organizing is for others, right? And that I'm fussing, and that I want my pantry to look a certain way or my drawers to look a certain way so that people think, I'm clean, neat, and I'm a Martha Stewart. But I actually like handling the objects and moving them around and getting the inspiration from that tactile experience. And so, the end result might be that it seems like I'm neat and orderly, but it's the organizing, the touching, the handling, the moving around that I get ideas from.
Yeah, and that you enjoy.
And that I enjoy. It's an expression of what I do naturally. Like, I've heard this said in a bunch of ways, but like when you're trying to figure yourself out, what do you do naturally? Like, what do you do when you don't have to do anything else? Where does your mind wander? Oftentimes, what I do is I move things around.
Yeah.
I group things together, right? It's a function of design. It's a function of art making. But, I draw a floor plan, or, I put the shirts on this side of the closet and then the jackets and then the dresses, or I arrange things by color and then I arrange them by size. And that's just like a natural, that's what I'm doing naturally.
Yeah. And you're experimenting with your daily experience. Like,
Right.
oh, I put the jackets here. Will I wear them more often? Like when I put them in the morning, is this going to be an enjoyable experience for me? This is like what you do for work, but you're doing it on like a micro scale, which is really impactful to your daily life.
Right.
I think you said your mother-in-law says, who cares who's going to see? Another breezy-ism is he says, God can see. So he always paints the sides and the backs of his canvases because he's always like, God can see it. And I'm like, okay, you are the God of this painting. So you're talking about you, like, and you can see it. That's why you're doing it. And so who cares if other people don't care? It's not for, like you said, it's for you. It's not for anybody
else. Well, and just, I'm so sorry. Hold on.
You're good. All good.
To go back to the God thing, not only can God see, God is there. Like when you're channeling, I mean, when people ask, well, where do you get your inspiration? I'm channeling the inspiration that's there all the time. Right? Like God is in the baking and the art making and the service or whatever it is that you're called to do. It's, the swimming, the hiking. I know I tend to really keep things in art and creative space, but I've just come to realize, like, in that true authenticity of doing, that's where God is. That's where you channel the creative force.
Yeah. And like the internal ask to, and I'm just using this as an example, like to paint the sides or the back of the canvas is the calling that you're getting. And it doesn't matter like who told you to do it or where it came from or if anybody's going to see it, like,
right.
That's what you were called to do. So do it, like let it out, get it out, because you might learn something on the back of the canvas with the texture that you would have never figured out on the front end that then becomes a part of your signature style, whatever
Yeah.
is. But I think like there's always going to be some resistance from external and internal voices.
Yep.
I think the push through is like like just push through it. And I think that's what I'm learning. That's what I want to become this year is like push through the resistance.
Right.
Because resistance is usually there to protect us from like harming ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Or from external sources. But if we can get to the other end, and I feel like I'm constantly pushing through when it comes to the revamp, but I'm not doing it like more internally on my day to day. Like, oh, I just want to sew.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just pushing through. But like with the revamp, it's been a push through the whole journey. Like, I know I want to do this. I know I want to build this. I know it'll be worth it. The work is hard, but like just push through. So now I'm gonna just sew or make something.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. We could talk forever, and I know we are. We're gonna do a part 2 right now in your podcast.
Yes.
We'll like if y'all want to keep this conversation going, it's gonna switch up a little bit. We'll put the link to Melissa's show down below. But 2 more questions before we go from the Let's Glow show. One, where can everybody find you?
Okay, so you can find the design agency at memora.design. You can find the Kindling Project at thekindlingproject.com. You can also find the Kindling Project podcast wherever you download podcasts. There's a Facebook group. We're on social media. We have events. We're in the community. And then you can always just look for me, Melissa Halpin. And I'm happy. I'm happy to meet anybody, talk to anybody, provide guidance, creativity, inspiration, whatever I can.
Be warned, when you talk to Melissa in person,
Yeah.
you will be inspired to action. So just be warned.
Yeah.
Like if you talk to her, you're gonna get some shit done. Okay? Which we love.
Yep. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Thanks for having me. This was so fun. We could do this for hours. I'm so glad we're gonna do this again right now.
I know it's gonna be great. I don't think I've ever done
magic podcast next.
A double. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely put. We're gonna keep this going. But before we go, one final question is, based on the conversation that we had today, what's your last piece of advice that you want to share with all of us?
There's a reason you're uneasy. Like, don't override that information. I was thinking about this. This just came to me recently about if you're struggling, if you're uneasy, that's really important information that we have been conditioned, so many of us, I know I have, is, hardworking people and successful people, they just do hard things, right? And I'm not necessarily convinced that we're supposed to be having such a hard time. I think listening to what feels good, what feels natural, what feels right is super important in making spaces for it. Our whole hour ended up being really about, making spaces for that sort of holy communion with the creative. However, also listen to what doesn't feel right. Don't let that go unchecked. I think, we get really far off track by overriding. Well, things are hard. Everyone's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. No, we're not really here to be uncomfortable.
I love that advice. I need to take it myself. I don't need to push through everything.
Yeah.
A friend of mine that you need to meet, Christina Fair, she always says, like, I'm done with brute force.
Yes.
I don't do brute force anymore.
Right. Right. Well, because you get hurt doing it. And it's not to say you can't achieve big things with a giant push. And there's a time and a place for it. Yeah. But sometimes spending too much time with the wrong people or working too hard on something is not worth the outcome or the collateral damage.
Yeah. Because imagine how much further if you could do a huge push through an open door.
Yeah. Think about how powerful and energized you feel when there's a group of us and it's fun. And all our cells are vibrating and we're sharing positive energy. I feel like that's a form of brute force, really.
Yeah. But it's collective and it's consensual.
Right.
If
Right.
you're brute forcing to get to an end and
Right.
open the door and it's a janitor's closet, like, are you surprised?
Right.
Versus like a door that's like willingly open, you can see into it, you know where it's going, and you rush in there,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful, and that's just, across the board. I love this.
Yeah.
Don't let that uneasy feeling go unchecked. That's beautiful. We don't need to like silence that alarm. I think it's important to listen.
Yeah.
Oh,
honor all the messages you're getting through your feelings and through your cells and your level of comfort.
Okay, well, we're going to continue this conversation. So thank you so much, Melissa, for being here today.
Thank you.
Every time I speak to you, it just feels so refreshing. And I hope that all of our amazing viewers got to get that refreshing experience. And we're going to do a part 2. So stick around, click the link below to the next show. Thank you all again for joining us on the Let's Glow Show. It's Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother. And we come together every single week to talk to creative entrepreneurs. And for those of you that are interested and saw things about the Revamped Clothing Swap Festival, please, please, please join us as a brand ambassador. The applications are now open. So if you are passionate about sustainability, fashion, content creation, and community, it might be right for you. So I'll put the link below as well. Thank you so much. And we will see you in a second and next week. Thanks so much. Bye.